Hello, listeners. This is George Cedarquist. Before we begin this week's episode, we want to acknowledge the legendary voice teacher, Maria Callas, whose death was announced after we recorded. We'll add our voice to her tributes next week.
You're listening to operaboxscore.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's operaboxscore. I'm George Cedarquist, joined this week by Oliver Camacho, Weston Williams, and Ashley Hardgrave. Okay, we go inside the huddle with Maya Kherani. In addition to being a rare example of a soprano of South Asian descent who has gained traction in the largely white world of early music, Maya is also establishing herself as an advocate for mothers in opera. So, of course, we put the OBS Mother in Residence on this interview. And then in a new segment, we finally arrived at the centennial anniversary of Maria Callas' birth. So over the course of the year, we are going to count down the Callas 100. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, it's another climate protest, this time during Tannhäuser at the Met. Come on, kids, you know the orchestra is already getting paid overtime for that show. Oh, wait, you're trying to bankrupt the company. Now we get it. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, Spotify, click follow, Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. Send us that voice memo or email us your hot takes, mailbag@operaboxscore.com, or even just record your thoughts using the You Got Something to Say page on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you're going to get the OBS beer coaster, the OBS lapel pin, and the all-new #1 OBS fan foam finger, just for sharing your own hot take. Those are going out to listeners right now. You want to be one of them. They are so utterly cool, I cannot tell you. But you gotta get your voice heard to get the foam finger. Am I right, Oliver? Or am I right?
Yes. And I just wanted to sneak in really quickly here, just to put it out in the universe, that we need a George Santos the opera. But the problem is, what Fach do you cast George Santos? Like
countertenor?
Haute contra? I think countertenor is too easy. It's got to be androgynous a little bit, but clearly.
Well, I think what you do is you have you start off with a tenor. And then they walk off stage, and then you bring on a soprano, and then they walk off stage, and it's like a bass baritone, and awesome. And every scene is a different.
Every
George
scene
Santos.
is awesome.
but the Katara Ravache section, that has to be the bass baritone.
Weston Williams, an amazing idea. Ashley Hardgrave, how are you? How are you dealing with Florida State University's snub by the NCAA College Committee?
Selection Sunday was a real bummer this time around. All I can say is, man, justice for Florida State. Like they went undefeated their entire season, went down to their third string quarterback, won 2 non-conference games on the road, and they still got knocked out of the college football playoffs because there just weren't enough spots in the way that they have devised this whole voting system together. So it just proves that really valuable lesson in life that, like, no matter how hard you work or how much you overcome, and a committee of old white dudes is going to determine your fate. So I would love to...
Not unlike the opera business, I might add. Weston, just so you know, because you may not be following these things, Michigan and Alabama are on a collision course.
Oh, yeah.
New Year's Day, 4 p.m., the Rose Bowl. 2 will enter, 1 will leave.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to be at odds on this one, George. It's going to be brutal because, as you know, born and raised in Alabama, my mother went to Bama, so obviously I'm rooting for the Tide. But fun fact that you might not know, George, is that my father actually went to Ohio State, so I have a lot invested in you losing.
How do I even entertain? How do we look at you once a week? It's because you're so entertaining, that's why. Let us talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
Back in July, I think it was my good call, the article that Corinna de Finesca Volheim wrote about mothers in opera. The name of the article is What Opera Singers Gained and Lost While Performing While Pregnant. And it's a topic that, we have been on motherhood here for a long time now, thanks to Ashley. And Maya Kherani, the soprano, who is one of she's actually the first interviewee for this New York Times story. And her picture is like on the cover of the spread, is a soprano that I've actually known since she was just beginning her career as a singer, as a specialist in early music. And so when this article came out and I saw that she was on the cover, I was like, holy poop. And she's exactly as I remember her. She's hilarious. She's as smart as a whip. And she's definitely taking care of herself. You don't need to take care of her. She's got everything under control. And she's a boss. And I'm just so thrilled that she was in Chicago to sing a Messiah, as one does, with University of Chicago. And I had this chance to interview her. And before we jump into the interview, which it has a lot to do with being a mother and with breast pumps and all these things. So if you're a sensitive listener, too bad. We'll listen to Maya singing the aria from Rossini's Il Turco in Italia, arranged for a string trio, the arrangement by Eric Zivian.
We're coming out of this really bizarro string quartet arrangement of you singing Fiorilla's ariette from Turco in Italia, and you sound amazing in this. Welcome to Opera Box Score, Maya.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
So we've known each other since 2010. You did the research.
Yes, 2010.
Yeah.
Amherst Early Music Festival. It was my first ever thing, really. I was an undergrad. I was just coming out of undergrad. I was not a music major. I studied engineering.
I wanted to say that really quickly because the top comment on this video that I found of you from Boston Broke, the top comment
I don't read the comments.
Okay, is she real? Indian American with Princeton engineering degree and a voice like an angel? Wow. Are you real?
Am I real? Oh my gosh. Wow. That's funny.
Well, that's kind of that summarizes.
I should put that in my bio.
I know. Is she real?
I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. But, so I've known you, and I've always known that you've had like a great personality, and you have a great like collegiality, and people love working with you, and you're hilarious.
No, thanks.
But I just been watching your career like explode, and when that New York Times article came out, the Corinna Fonesco Volheim is her name, about motherhood. I mean, I'm not a person who squees, but like if I could squee, I would have let out the gayest squee when I saw that thing. And we talked about it on Opera Box Score, but I wanted to give you a chance to expand a little bit more on what you said has become now your brand. You're like
I know. I guess it has become my brand, especially after that article came out. And it just fell into my lap. I'm in this mom group online called Momology, and it's a Facebook group, and it's basically mostly opera singers and instrumentalists and other. I think there's some ballet dancers, but it's it's this community of moms, and we share our trials and tribulations of being mothers, but especially as it applies to the performing arts and the classical arts, because our lifestyle is like no other, and so I think that community has been extremely helpful for me. And so I got the opportunity through there, and they were looking for someone who was very visibly pregnant and who was going to be performing on stage. And I guess I fit the bill. I was 8 months pregnant. singing.
You were chosen because you were pregnant for that.
Yes.
There was a French Baroque opera you did. I mean, a Italian Seicento opera you did in France.
Correct.
A version of Orfeo by a bizarre composer.
Antonio Sartorio.
There you go.
Yeah, that guy.
And you were cast because of your pregnancy.
No.
Oh, okay.
I was cast far before that.
Okay.
And then, we got pregnant and I told my agent, I said, I'm going to be 8 months pregnant. Hope they're fine with that. And she's like, I think it'll be okay.
It's France.
It's France. And the director, Benjamin Lazare, he was totally game for it. And then we just worked it into my character. And it ended up being perfect because the character is Autonoe. She's this, I was singing opposite Justin Kim. And he was, my estranged lover, and he left me. He jilted me, and
Your gay lover.
I know, right? And I travel across, the lands trying to find him after months, and so it kind of worked that he knocked me up and he left, and I come back and find him, and I ream him out basically, and it worked.
Ream.
Yeah, ream. And it just worked really well with the character, and the text supported it, and so we just went with it, and I think it made the character stronger. And so people thought that it was intentional, or that the character itself was written in the opera as pregnant. So that worked. That does not always happen though, because there are most roles, if you're pregnant, it can be a challenge for the director to work with it. So happened to work.
I'm in your hotel room as you are in Chicago doing a Messiah, and I'm inundated with visions of your motherhood all over the
There's
place.
just pump parts strewn everywhere. I have 3 coolers. Yeah. Oh, the glamour.
Yeah, but that's the thing that was actually remarkable about this article, in that, and I'm the wrong person to be talking about this. I'm so sorry, women out there, but you got me. That this article really is very honest about the physical part of being a mother and what it does to the singing body.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like what Corinna wrote about that, because I don't think a lot of people give a second thought to how the body changes and how really the instrument changes as well. I loved singing pregnant. It was one of the best things about being pregnant for me, because I pretty much hated being pregnant. I know that's kind of like a faux pas to say. A lot of people are, they think
it's a miracle.
it's Earth Mama, you're so radiant, and yes, but it was rough. I had 2 rough pregnancies.
But you're a tiny woman. You're what, 5'2" or something like that? Yeah. And you probably, when you're not pregnant, you weigh 110 pounds or something like that, right?
Come on, Oliver. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, it is right.
Now, I've known you, I remember you being a little thing.
I was even tinier then. But so I had terrible pregnancies. But the singing, I just loved having that extra, really the extra heft, the extra grounding, the extra support, something to sing against. And both of my babies, they would really, especially in the 3rd trimester, react when I was singing. They would kick and be more active. So I don't really know if they liked it or not, but it was a really incredible experience. There were vocal changes, even a lot of people said that my voice got richer, and it actually stayed. I think the hormones, they are sort of permanently altered through pregnancy. And so I love that. And my rib cage had to expand so much to accommodate my belly and my ribs never went back. So that has been an awesome outcome of both pregnancies. I'm like, great, I'll just keep this forever, because my clothes don't fit it's my ribs that don't fit in my gowns that I used to wear just a few years ago. So
when you were snatched.
Yeah. What are you trying to say? No. So there's tons of physical changes, tons of vocal changes, and then, mentally the journey of motherhood and enduring that whole experience, has changed me so much as an artist. So as difficult as it is to be a working mom and singing and traveling and all of the logistical challenges that come with that, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love my kids, but I also love what the experience has done to me as an artist. So, it's... Your
second kid now is still an infant of 5 months?
5-month-old, yeah.
And you have a toddler.
And I have a toddler.
And so you are still producing milk And
Yep.
when you're doing operas, like, have you found certain companies understand this better and like give you space and give you like time to like,
Yes.
gotta take a break now. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, no, I think I am not afraid to be vocal about what I need. And I think a lot of companies, especially nowadays, thankfully appreciate that. I haven't had a company yet that hasn't accommodated my needs. So I'll just tell them exactly what I want. So if, for anyone out there who's like, oh, I don't know if I should ask, I need a break at this time, and just ask, because a lot of times the administration just doesn't know what you need. And so I tell them I need this, I need a space, I need to pump every 3 hours, or, or when I was pregnant, I need a break at this time. And so, everyone's been very supportive and really great. With my first pregnancy, it was during COVID, and I was in a production of 3 Decembers, which was a digital production at Opera San Jose, and Susan Graham was in it. And it was a really great experience in that, we had these long filming days, and I would just be really vocal about when I needed breaks. And the company was more than happy to oblige. So just, speak up. And I think nowadays, especially in the US, thankfully, and actually in France, they were great too, about accommodating my needs. I've heard other things about Germany, but
Yeah. Well,
I don't have that personal experience.
you were talking about 3 Decembers, and you were talking about Justin Kim, and I don't know who this Lazar director is, but I'm starting to imagine that like you have all this posse of gay men surrounding you, like just adore you so much. And that's actually how opera works, folks. Like first the gay men have to like you, then you make it big.
Lazar, I feel like you do know who he is because, there's that production of Bourgeois Gentilhomme on YouTube with all the candles.
La Poème Harmonique. Yeah. He directed that?
He directed that.
Oh,
yeah,
God,
so
I
he's
love
like
him.
a Baroque gesture queen and just incredible. Absolutely
Said all
incredible.
my trigger words. So you have worked a lot in Europe, and you're an American, even though that, people look at you, and because people are racist, they don't think of you immediately as American. I have 2 questions about that. There are, in my opinion, fewer Americans who break out in the highly stylized Baroque world because we're just not generally trained how to do those unique styles, those very specific styles. Obviously, there are exceptions like Justin Kim and, all the people that go through Boston Early Music Festival.
Sherazade,
Yeah,
Pataki.
Sherry, yeah. But can you first talk about being an American in Europe who are doing these very specialized styles of music, especially you're doing Seicento and that Orfeo you just talked about, and you were invited to sing in a big French Baroque opera recently, even though you didn't accept the contract. So people must know that you can do these things.
Yeah, I think I just learned by doing. I do have a music degree. I did my master's in vocal performance at the San Francisco Conservatory. And
Are you real?
am I real? But it had a great Baroque ensemble. But we didn't really do any Seicento. And I feel like I just sort of learned on the job from colleagues and productions that I've gotten to be a part of. Honestly, I learned a lot about gesture at Amherst Early Music Festival in 2010.
Good. That was with Jennifer Griesbach, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, who was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I went to Princeton for undergrad, and so Wendy Heller's
did
there.
you know Arya?
We did not overlap. He entered like right after I graduated, but we are good friends, and we did Early Music Vancouver's Baroque
with Ellen Hargis.
Ellen Hargis. So I learned a lot from that. So I just kind of like cobbled together this knowledge through experiences and through these workshops.
So Pay to Sings actually work.
Well, I think Pay to Sings from the Baroque world work because there's not, as you said, there's not a lot of training for that here.
Yeah. Now they have that fancy program at Juilliard or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I don't think existed when I was coming up. And I certainly wasn't good enough to get in. So, but I think like, and then I went and I did this a Popea at X in 2022 last year, and that didn't have any gesture, but in terms of musical style, Seicento style, I learned a ton from Alarcón.
Yeah.
And just being with that band, I mean, they they live and breathe this music, and they've just been, you know.
You were Drusilla, right?
Drusilla and Fortuna, yeah. And just the continuo was so rich and inventive, and the way that they would improvise and ornament, like I just picked up so much from that, and from Alarcón, and just applying that, like that helped me, I feel like, a lot, doing more Seicento repertoire.
But do you notice when you're doing these gigs, when you've done these gigs, that there aren't a lot of Americans around?
Weirdly, that Popea had like 4 Americans. Okay. But that was odd. Yeah. And in this Sartorio, it was just me and Justin who were the Americans.
I'm just trying to get confirmation.
Oh, and Zach Wilder. You know Zach.
Zach, of course. Well, he's French now.
But so is Justin, I guess.
I'm trying to get confirmation because I feel like throughout the years, I've discovered this, that Americans come with this sort of American work ethic and with this bel canto technique, but they don't usually come with like the style. And like the European colleague you have come with all the style and all of like the self-confidence, but might not have like the technical ability.
I think that's a fair representation. Yeah. Yeah. And I think those of us who specialize in this repertoire have had to really seek it out, seek out the knowledge, seek out the coaches, these specific training programs, and just sort of glean that knowledge in bits and pieces as we go, and learning from colleagues, learning from these European colleagues who've been doing it forever. Yeah. You know, and YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the difficult question, because I don't want to imply that you're not delivering the goods, because you clearly are, but you are a ravishingly beautiful, highly melanated woman. Has that been a benefit for you, or has that been in a way an obstacle?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think there has been a push now for more diversity on stage, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and I think some opportunities have come my way because of that. So, I don't want to minimize that. But I think, especially in early music, it's really white. It's super white.
You don't say.
It's super old, and it's super male. And so, as someone who's younger, quote unquote, I guess not anymore, but, and I'm a brown South Asian woman, and it's been, it is challenging to break in. And, we worked together 13 years ago, and I just sort of twiddled my thumbs and worked on my technique for 9 of those years. And only now recently have I been able to break through, and I'm on these call lists for these conductors. Because the thing in early music is, and you know this, there aren't really auditions. There's no open calls. It's just getting in with these conductors, and then they bring their singers around everywhere, which can be great if you're on their list. But breaking in is something else in early music. And, I have great management, and they've really helped me sort of get in front of some conductors. But it is a challenge, and it's such a black box. It's just so closed off, this world. And I think that that's something that we all need to work on in the early music industry to break down those barriers. I was talking to, Vijay Chalasani. So Baroque violist. We both went to conservatory together. He is also
in Montreal?
He's in, Well, we went to San Francisco together, but he's in Montreal now. I think somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, he's in the boondocks.
Yeah. But we run a group for South Asian artists, classical musicians. And he's also, an early music guy, and he is called for open auditions in the early music world. And I think that would help to break down some of these barriers and to entry for us. Because these connections, man, it's all about connections. It's all about connections everywhere, but especially in early music. So now I'm on these like conductors lists, and that feels great, and that's good. And I hope that other more diverse artists can come through as well. I mean,
do you want to plug this South Asian group so that people can find it?
Oh, it's just it's a Facebook group. Okay. It's South Asians and Western Classical Music. So just send us a little request to join.
Show your South Asian card.
Yeah. And we're not super active, but it's a great community. And I think it's funny because so I have a diatribe about Messiah, because Messiah, I did my very, very first Messiah in 2021, 2 years ago, at Boston Baroque. Yeah. That was my first Messiah ever. And until that point, I had never been hired for a Messiah, which is kind of crazy and ridiculous because it's my bread and butter repertoire. And so that opened a lot of doors for me. But it's one of those things, like if you don't grow up in a church and you don't have the opportunity, you don't know the conductors, it's really hard to get those gigs and to be on that circuit. And Messiah is one of those things that it's so popularly programmed, right? It is everywhere. And a lot of people, they like to hire singers who've done it before. Mm-hmm. And so it's something that's specifically difficult to break into, but also provides a lot of mileage for the rest of your career. Mm-hmm. Not only financially, but it's so visible, right? It's the one concert that like everybody goes to. So in terms of exposure too, the exposure bucks that pay so much, it's critical for like a Handel singer's career. And whenever I see these Messiah announcements, and I see the soloists and they're all four white, I think to myself, what a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's because of the power of the piece, not just, musically and emotionally, but for a career, for an early music singer. So I guess I would just say that, for people who are in charge of hiring soloists for Messiah, I think it's one of those things that we should be prioritizing.
There's your chance too. Like if you need to diversify and you don't have that many opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think. So thank you to Boston Baroque for taking a chance on me on my first Messiah ever. That was broadcast worldwide.
How did you meet James Kallenbach, who is a notable composer who happens to conduct the Messiah that you're singing tomorrow as we record?
I actually have never worked with him before.
Okay.
So just met him yesterday, but he's wonderful. Great conductor. And I don't know how
he found you?
How he found me.
Okay. I wonder who actually hired you. I feel like it was him because he spends a lot of time in Boston. So I wonder if he
Maybe. Yeah. No, it's great.
I got to get that brown girl.
Actually, this Messiah is great.
This is like 75% brown.
It's 75% brown. It is. It is Leah Dexter and Jonathan Woody as well. But Matt Dean is the tenor, and he's amazing too.
He's white. Yeah. No, he's a friend of mine. I love him.
Yeah.
Just because I always want to remind the audience that this conversation exists, but I spoke to Yeston Davies about how he balances concert work with opera work. And he says it's important to take those concert gigs because they're shorter. You're, getting your name out there as somebody who will sing a B minor mass or who will sing a Messiah, and the people won't forget to include you on those lists. But if you stick with opera, you're in like a cave for like 6 weeks at a time, and you could miss an opportunity to do a concert, which is actually easier for a home life and easier for rehearsal schedules. There's no staging. Have you tried to factor some of that into your schedule?
Absolutely. I just had a conversation with my agent actually about sort of in this season of my life prioritizing concert work, even though I dearly love opera. I love acting. I love the theatrical aspect of it. But just logistically, it's just so much easier with my two littles to just be gone for 3 days and not have to travel with them and find accommodation for 6 weeks in the middle of nowhere. And so it's something that works a lot better for my stage of life. And I love doing it. I love singing concert work. And I think it should be highly dramatic because it's at the end of the day, storytelling. I mean, even a B minor mass and even, it needs to be, we got to hold the audience's attention. So
give them a show.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with Yeston. It's, you got to be able to balance both. And at this time, I'm like trying to skew a little bit more concert for this stage of my life. We'll see if that changes.
You got to buy new gowns now that you have bigger ribs.
Oh my God. I just gave away like tons of gowns. I was like, I don't have the bandwidth to sell all of these. So I just did like a big prom giveaway to my neighborhood of all my like size 0 gowns, which I will never fit into again. All the tweens were very excited.
Nice. There's going to be a bunch of girls at their high school prom. They're like dressed like opera singers.
I know. I accept zero responsibility.
Okay, Maya, thank you so much for coming to Opera Box Score.
Yeah, thank you.
just a little bit of Maya's Rejoice, that from the Boston Baroque in, I want to say 2021. My thanks once again to Maya Kherani for being such a fabulous guest on Opera Box Score.
May I have your attention, please? This is the Callas Countdown to 100.
So over the weekend, we finally made it to Callas 100, and now we are in the centennial year. We can celebrate the great Maria Callas until December 2nd, 2024. There's already, what do you call this, backlash or overload? People are already like,
all the people who've been celebrating George Ligeti 100, like me, are super mad about it.
But we are just beginning our own celebration. And over the course of this year, we want to give you, our beloved audience, 100 great Callas, fill in the blanks, things, images, videos, anecdotes, quotes, career events, factoids, anything we can think of that to get to 100 deliverables for you, so you can understand why Callas is so great. And we're going to start with item number 100. I'm going to pass it over to Weston.
Well, I mean, I should say, first of all, I was raised by a family that was still in the throes of the great Callas as a rival to various singers throughout her career. I was raised in a Joan Sutherland family, and so I was raised with a lot of disparaging remarks. So this new segment is going to be as much to convince me as anything else. But I did want to start with, just some of the basics, just start at the very beginning. I hear it's a good place to start. She was born, here's the number one fact that we're starting with. She was born December 3rd, 1923, in New York City as Maria Anna Cecilia Sophia Kalogeropoulos. So obviously she ended up shortening that name a little bit. And now, of course, we know her as the great Maria Callas. Her mother, who was known as Lista, even though her full name is Elmina Evangelia, expected to have a boy. And she was actually so disappointed that Maria was a girl that she didn't look at her for days after she was born. Interestingly enough, she was the one who was into the arts in the family. She was her mother, I should say, was the one who was really into the arts, really into the music, really into the social aspects of the arts, which would become very pertinent to Maria's own life when we're talking a lot about the gossip later on, which is, I'm sure, what a lot of people are tuning in for to this segment. However, her father, George, had no interest in the arts whatsoever. Could not care less. That's George. And George Cedarquist was her father. No, that's not a fun fact. It's a fun lie. But I just want to start at the very beginning. She started off just like anyone else, just born to immigrant parents in New York City, with very little to her name, and there was no indication at the very beginning that she would become probably the most influential and recognized voices and figures in opera history.
But I think we're also, by learning this information, we're creating the formula for how you create the next Callas. So wish for a boy.
Put it all into a box.
Give birth to a girl instead and ignore her for the first couple of days.
It works every time. Every psychologist will tell you this is how you produce a great diva.
Okay, so item number 100 is just a little bit of trivia about Callas, including her full name, like Tobias. What is Tobias' middle name? I forget. When Matt
Tobias dead to us, right?
When Matt full named Tobias out of anger, that was a great moment in Opera Box Score history for you longtime fans. Okay, so item number 99 is going to jump all the way to 1971 for the famous series of masterclasses that she gave at Juilliard. And there's actually a book that I love referring to if you ever are studying an aria and you want some cool coaching tips. You learn that Maria Callas really was such a great musician and respected the composer's intentions so much. And during these masterclasses, she covered, all Fox basically. And there was a baritone named Sung Kil Kim, who sang Cortigiani from Rigoletto. And just as a quick reminder, what Cortigiani is, this is in the palace of the Duke. Rigoletto was like coming to work knowing that his daughter was abducted by the courtiers and is probably in the middle of being assaulted by the Duke himself. And he comes onto the scene, and first he's like playing it cool, like, he can handle the joke. Okay, haha, now where's my daughter? And when he realizes they're not going to budge, he, launches into this like rage aria, desperation. And we're going to hear Maria Callas sing Cortigiani. For my money, that is some of the most dramatic singing. I mean, I love that aria, and we've heard the great baritone sing it, but just how she deploys her chest voice, how she goes for some of that declamatory singing, it sounds so desperate and so tragic. And that poor baritone who cannot compete. Well, he must have been doing his best. Yeah, he was. Yeah. But no, that to me is, I would love to hear her sing the entire role of Rigoletto.
And next we move into, what is this, 97? Is that where we're going?
98.
98, yes, sorry. I can't count, guys. I have 2 degrees in music. At any rate, so one of the things that we wanted to mention are sort of the big 6 that happened here in Chicago. So between, the brand new lyric during the seasons for 1954 and 1955, she did 6 roles straight through. Absolutely insane. Norma Traviata Lucia in 54, and in 55, Puritani, Trovatore, and Butterfly, which incidentally would be the only full butterflies that she would ever do. And so there's some really interesting, we got to have fun with microfiche a little bit earlier where Oliver did a little bit of research into, it was the New York Times, right, that gave the review of the of her opening night of 55 season, which was the Puritani, and she came out to rave reviews as the makings of a brand new prima donna, and it's a really interesting sort of series that she did all of these things back to back to back to back to open this house when she was still sort of a younger. Oh, let's talk a little bit about this singer that these audiences don't yet really know, and it was really wonderful because she did all of these back to back, but those were kind of the only things she did here in Chicago for a very long time. She did those 2 seasons, and then she only came back to Chicago like 3 times in total before her death in the late 70s. I had the chance to be part of a really awesome event, which was a Callas in Chicago concert that was put on by the Newberry Library here many moons ago. I think it was for her 80th birthday year. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was Callas turns 80. And so what they did is they had singers represent each of these big 6 roles that she did between the 54 and the 55 seasons. And so I got the chance to sing Qui la Voce in honor of her Puritani. And I believe we're going to hear a little bit of that right now. Is that right, Oliver?
Yeah, so we're just talking about her I Puritani, and we'll talk about this.
Well, I thought we were going to hear Ashley singing it.
But she was 31 years old when she sang Puritani in Chicago. That was in 1955. We're going to hear same era Callas, a little bit earlier in the career, from the studio recording from 1953.
To
So there you have it, our first installment of the OBS Counts Down Callas 100. If you have your own favorite moment, favorite recording, favorite anecdote, favorite quote, favorite picture, please do not hesitate to...
Because we have a lot to get through and we don't want to run out of ideas before next year.
Use the You Got Something to Say page on our website at operaboxscore.com.
This just in. The 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
The opening night of Tannhäuser at the Met was interrupted by climate protesters' Extinction Rebellion, shouting, "Wolfram, wake up, the spring is polluted," and unfurling posters that read, "No opera on a dead planet." The protest brought the performance to a standstill twice, adding 22 minutes to the already hefty runtime. After the second interruption, Peter Gelb instructed the crew to finish the opera with house lights on at 25% for security reasons.
In other Wagner news, the Bayreuth Festival announced it will cut its chorus by 40% next year from 134 to 80 members, citing financial difficulties and a stagnation in the amount of funding from the government. The festival also expects donations from the Friends of Bayreuth to drop by €1 million next year.
Herbert von Karajan is cancelled! Or at least his statue is. Theater Aachen in Germany took down a bust of the conductor due to his ties to the Nazi Party during World War II. The theater was an early career maker for Karajan, and the conductor was the organization's music director from 1935 to 1942. The bust will be replaced by a statue of the less problematic Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Out Here Music has acquired Delos' classical music catalog, presumably thwarting Apple Music's takeover of the entire classical recording industry. The Delos label was founded in 1973 and was one of the first companies to embrace digital recording technology. Out Here Music is a Belgian company that hopes to ramp up new recordings under the Delos name and increase the label's footprint in Europe.
Congrats to the 2023 Kennedy Center honorees. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden attended the honoree gala to celebrate comedian Billy Crystal, the Bee Gees' Barry Gibb, rapper and actress Queen Latifah, singer and everybody's auntie Dionne Warwick, and that singer you hear about sometimes on this show, Renee Fleming.
In Dollar Bills news, Long Beach Opera has received the single largest gift in the company's history of $1.25 million from the estate of longtime board member Carol Richards. Additionally, Santa Fe Opera has received a $1 million grant from #StartSmall to support its active learning through opera, or Alto, program for in-class outreach. See what being a friend of the show gets you?
The Opéra Nationale de Paris has announced the recipients of this year's Gérard Mortier Awards. The namesake honor, an award for a lifetime achievement, goes to French director and Oscar nominee Ariane Mnouchkine. Mnouchkine. Thank you, everybody. Known for her avant-garde productions in the opera and film world. The Mortier Next Generation Award, which is endowed with €30,000, goes to German director Jeffrey Düring, who also receives a scholarship from the Wissenschaftskolleg in Berlin. That means the workshop college in Berlin?
The Science College.
The Science College in Berlin.
I'm glad we cleared that up. In trade news, Opera Steamboat has appointed Julie Makowski as the company's general director and CEO of the organization. Makowski previously worked at Florida Grand Opera as director of artistic administration and the head of the Young Artist Program.
Exit stage right American mezzo-soprano and teacher Mildred Miller, who died at age 98. Miller debuted at the Met in 1951 in her signature role of Cherubino, which she performed a record 61 times with the company. Over the course of nearly a quarter century at the Met, Miller sang 338 performances across 21 different roles. She went on to found Pittsburgh Festival Opera.
And on this day, December 4th in 1660, was the birth of French composer André Campra. In 1667, composer and teacher Michel Pignolet de Montclair, also French, was born. In 1693, it was the first performance of Marc-Antoine Charpentier's Médée in Paris. In 1774, it was the first performance of Giovanni Paisiello's Il Divertimento dei Numi, a one-act opera performed in Naples. In 1816, Gioacchino Rossini's Otello premiered, also in Naples. In 1872, it was the first performance of Lecoq's La Fille de Madame Angot in Brussels. Nellie Melba made her debut as Lucia de Lammermoor in New York City on this day in 1893. 1909 saw the first performance of Ermanno Wolf-Ferrari's The Secret of Susanna. In 1920, it was the first performance of Korngold's Die Tote Stadt in Hamburg. 1927, potentially, saw the birth of American tenor Richard Casilli in D.C. In 1938, it was the birth of mezzo-soprano Yvonne Minton in Sydney, Australia. British soprano Lillian Watson was born in London in 1947. In 1949, Luigi Dalla Piccola's I Prigioniero was performed on the radio in Turin, probably the Italian Rye. And on this day, December 4th, in 1954, it was the first performance of Ildebrando Pizzetti's La Figlia di Giorgio, also in Naples.
And that is your 2-minute drill.
Just a little bit of Renee Fleming in one of her signature arias. I mean, she might be the best around when it comes to that aria. From Die Tote Stadt, Marietta's lead, Glück das mir verliebt, whatever it's called.
Whatever.
Yeah, that was from the 2009 gala from the Met, the 125th anniversary of the Met.
She's in great company with those 2023 Kennedy Center honorees. I wonder what they talk about, like, when they're waiting in the wings before they go on. Like, Billy Crystal.
Like they have nothing in common, you're saying? Like,
who am I to say what they have in common or what they don't have in common? I just wonder what they talk about.
Dionne Warwick is holding court. She is directing traffic. She is telling everybody what's what.
Against Queen Latifah?
Oh, absolutely. Queen Latifah will bow to Auntie Dionne. Listeners, this isn't what we're supposed to talk about in the talkback, but if you could do yourself a favor today, follow Dionne Warwick on social media. Do it. Do it on Twitter. Do it on Instagram. You will not be sorry. The photograph of all of them together with their honoree, what are they called? Sashes, the little rainbow things that they have on with the medallions on them. Dionne's in the front row, and with her gown, she's wearing house shoes.
Amazing. So, climate change activists interrupting live performances of classical music, it's like a thing now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this is the same organization that we've been hearing about often.
Extinction Rebellion, yeah.
Extinction Rebellion. It's kind of interesting, too. I feel like you hear about a lot of these things, but you almost never hear the name of the group. But they've done it enough now so that they are starting to be reported on. So, like, I guess it's working, at least as far as brand recognition goes.
They're essentially the Met of climate protesters, really.
So true.
They have huge brand recognition.
Just as controversial, I think that, I think they certainly have a very good point with the... drawing attention to the urgency of the situation. I don't think a lot of the Met audience saw it that way based on the videos that you can find on Twitter. There was a very sort of aggressive shouting down of the protesters.
That's so dumb. I don't get that.
I will say, I appreciate the fact that they either someone on Extinction Rebellion is an opera person, or they did their research because they found the point in the opera where Wolfram starts talking about a stream, and that was their cue to unfurl the banners and say the stream is poisoned.
I'd love to see their sort of like itemized annual budget, which was like Metropolitan Opera tickets in the lower dress circle. You
know whose budget we're not going to see that much of is Bayreuth, because they're cutting stuff left, right, and center, including their choristers.
Oi, oi, oi.
Transition win.
It's hard to do a Wagner opera with less chorus, let's be honest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's going to sound so anemic, you guys. I'm worried. How do you do that?
I don't know how.
They just have to do the Wagner operas that don't have chorus, I guess, you know?
Okay, so which would be, not to put you in
it's the first three ring cycle, right? I think Defane actually has a chorus. I can't remember. It's been a long time. Yeah, this is, concerning. Bayreuth has been kind of panicking recently, I think. We've seen a lot of, desperate moves, pulling out the stops to bring Defane to the stage. We always talk about how jealous we are here in the States of all that state subsidies. But maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. At least it isn't for Bayreuth. So we'll see. I mean, this is one of those organizations that's so specific. Just Wagner, just Wagner in this one specific space. There's only so much you can expand. There's only so much you can change. So yeah, and this, it makes me a little bit sad. They need more choristers. And, the Friends of Bayreuth being a little stingy. I'll say it.
So who's sad that von Karajan's statue was taken down?
I mean, I don't think anybody. It's, once you tell me someone's got ties to the Nazi party and it can be substantiated, I'm like, I'm good. I don't need that anymore. Yeah. I'm okay without it. So yeah, not a fan of that. What we are a fan of, Long Beach and Santa Fe, because they've got some new dollar bills.
Right from Nazis to a Friends of the Show.
Yeah, hopefully their money's not coming from Nazi gold.
I hope not.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, good on them though. Good on Long Beach. That's for a company that size to get that sort of an endowment from, the trust of a longtime board member. That's really amazing. And
that's game changing.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I did a little homework on the Start Small Fund. It actually started as a global public COVID-19 relief fund. Now that the pandemic is effectively over, the focus of the funding is shifting to girls' health and education and UBI. So it's really cool that they were able to sort of keep Santa Fe and this Alto program under that. So thank you to Jack Dorsey for starting this.
Lots of money being thrown out and around by the Paris Opera as well. The Lifetime Achievement Award for Aryan Mnouchkine, who was one of the most brilliant late 20th century avant-garde directors in many fields, including film, opera, dance. I mean, she is up there with Pina Bausch, Peter Sellers, Peter Brook.
All the Peters.
Incredible. All the Peters.
And Peters, yeah.
Jeffrey Doering as well, who I don't know, had to look up and do a little research for. If he's the future of opera, the future of opera is pretty bright. He's done some amazing installation and wacky pieces. I will say this: there is no way that the Paris Opera would ever give a Gérard Mortier Award to an American. This is a European opera house. Ultimately, only European directors are really on their radar.
This is how George is coping with not being nominated this year.
I'm not sorry for me. I'm sorry for Yuval Sharon.
Sorry,
and I
Yuval.
mean that in absolute sincerity, right? Look, he's a friend of mine. He's a great director. He's a total visionary and genius, right? But he's not on this. He could never be on this list because it's so Eurocentric.
One final note on these Kennedy Center honors. I know we've talked about them a lot, but there is going to be a telecast that happens, and I'm sure you guys have watched this before. So they have those tributes that come in for each of the folks. I can't wait to see who they put in the Renee Fleming tribute. I cannot wait to see what singers they pick. It's going to be so exciting.
That really will be exciting. Let's wrap the show up.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call is our way to take you home, and we're going to start with Oliver Camacho.
The episodes of The Gilded Age are not coming fast enough for me. Yesterday's was such a heartbreaker. If you haven't watched it, no spoilers, but Cynthia Nixon will punch you in your stomach. And it was just an amazing performance by her. But I'm excited about the Opera Wars, and I see that this is all where their season finale is already set up for a great showdown between the Academy and the Met.
Weston Williams.
As you're listening to this, you might be aware that Henry Kissinger recently died, which you are probably, you probably have opinions about. And I probably, I don't want to get too political here, but, not a nice guy. I think that, but I wanted to bring it up because the New York Times has an article, and this is always something that I'm so interested in whenever we talk about Nixon and China, because we forget that when Nixon and China came out, basically everyone in that opera, at least on the American side, was still alive and could still see it. And famously, everyone gets a sort of a final aria moment in that last ensemble. Except for Henry Kissinger, who is stuck in the bathroom, presumably just pooping all the time, to give you a sense of John Adams and Alice Goodman's opinion of Henry Kissinger. But I think it's a really interesting article, genuinely entertaining and interesting about the historical context and the implications of doing a historical opera based on recent history. And I encourage you to check it out.
Ashley Hardgrave.
Additionally, in the climate change vein, a questionable, borderline bad call to the La Scala Orchestra for making their debut during COP28 at the Dubai Opera House. Because what better way to really talk about the effects of climate change than to fly your entire orchestra from Italy to the United Arab Emirates for a debut concert?
We'll call it an ironic call.
Don't you have the sense that they're not going to get through their set until you-know-who interrupts it?
I can't. And they had some great singers with them, but also, no, friends, this is not the way.
I have a good call as well, thanks to Amy in New York City that shared this with me. This is from the gram of Insta. It mashes up classical music and sports in the perfect way possible. Take a listen.
Do you mind giving us some insight onto your performance today?
Yeah, no, first I want to give a shout out to the second violins. Like, we were all locked in that first and second movement. It was fantastic. In the third movement, we as a section started to pull apart a little bit, but thankfully the concertmaster was there to pull us all together, and that was a fantastic play by him. It would have fallen apart without him. The violas really showed up and played today. We had some questions during rehearsal, but they answered all those questions today in the performance. And the cellos, of course, are just always a class act. So we're pretty happy with the result today, and we can't wait to see what we do next season.
I don't think people really say the gram of Insta, but sure, you go
George
with that.
George just discovered the internet, so you'll have to bear with him.
You know how George is. He's hip. He's hip. He's down with the apps.
He's got
he
the
knows
Riz,
what the
yeah.
youths do.
Dude, I carry. Okay, I carry. I think I know what that means. Hey, that's it for this week's edition of America's Talk radio show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Get your voice heard and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. And that's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS on the Support the Team page. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Thanks, Norm, for everything you do for us. Your creative consultant's Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is Weston Williams. For co-host Ashley Hardgrave and our guest Maya Kherani, I'm George Cedarquist asking you to continue the conversation about opera with the house lights at 25%. We're back with an all-new show next week when we go inside the huddle with Canadian-based John Relier. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, more Callas 100, and more Riz. Join us.